We're going to talk about the greatest opportunity ever. Of course, we're talking about the gospel call. Everybody is called, but there is a catch. I'm going to use the idea of a dress code. I'm not talking about a literal dress code, but let me use that as a metaphor, if you would. So everyone's called. The call has gone out, but there are some conditions that have to be met. And I want you to think of it as two levels or two stages, if you would. First, there's stage one, where everyone is invited. Mark 16:15. Go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature, to everyone. So everyone gets to hear the invitation, but the invitation comes with some dress code qualifications. Let's use that metaphor again. Entrance is conditional. It is contingent. And Matthew 7:21 would tell us that quite clearly. Not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, enter the kingdom of heaven, but who does the will of the Father. Now, I understand this is a bit controversial in the broader religious community because there are people who teach that it is absolutely unconditional and everybody gets to go to heaven along with their dog and kitty cat. But that's not what the Bible teaches. So what we see is that not just anyone gets in. And nothing unclean, and no one who practices abominations and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written into the Lamb's book of life. Again, it's contingent upon meeting the qualifications that Christ set, that God set for us. Let's use Revelation 22:14. Blessed are those who wash their robes, so they may have a right to the tree of life and may enter the gate. Now, those are the ones that get to go in. What did they do? They wash their robe. If you have a New King James, it was also mentioned obedience there. Outside are the dogs and the sorcerers and immoral persons and the murderers and idolaters and everyone who loves and practices a lie. My point is simply this. Everybody, global invitation, if you would, global call, but only those that get to enter the kingdom are those who do the will of the Father, which, of course, is Matthew 7:21, which if you don't know that verse by now, we got a problem, don't we? How many times have you heard Matt? Has there been a sermon go by that didn't get Matthew 7:21 quoted in it? Maybe, but it's been rare. So he says those who get to enter the kingdom are those who do the will of the Father. Well, that brings up a question. What does it mean to do the will of the Father? And I'm going to use 2 Timothy 2:22, and we're going to build on that a little bit. And he says, flee from youthful lust, pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart. So, as a Christian, those people who are entering the kingdom are those who flee youthful lust. Sadly, there are a lot of folks out there nowadays teaching that you can continue to wallow in your youthful lust, and it's okay because God's already forgiven you, and you don't have to clean up your life. Now, I understand that's a nice, comfy, feely-good, fluffy message, but that is not the message of the Bible. You can see it with your own eyes. We had it in the previous 3 verses there. We have to meet God's standard. And it is meetable. It isn't something impossible. That's another thing that the false teachers like to do is just go, it's totally impossible. You can never do it. Well, that's another lesson. So Christians, we pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace. So we're leaving something off. The nature abhors a vacuum, so we're going to add something to it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the bad stuff and we're going to add the good stuff, which is righteousness, faith, love, and peace. And we're going to do it in a group because we need to do it in a group. So we're going to do it from a pure heart. We're going to do it along with other people because it's really, really hard to be a solo act. And we've not been called to be a solo act. Now, if you get isolated on a desert island somewhere and you're the only person there, okay, I get it. But I don't know anybody who's ever been isolated on a desert island and was the only person, you know? Everybody I know is in a community. And they can choose to pursue with other people the Lord from a pure heart. And this leads us into, of course, that greatest opportunity. It's just indescribable. We are trying to move in to heaven and live with God for all eternity. And I hope it doesn't come across bad. I say it sometimes. Do you want everybody in Pine Bluff and Jefferson County, I mean, literally everybody, including the prison units, in heaven with you, living just like they're living today? And if they're all there with you, living just like they're living today, what would make heaven different than Pine Bluff? Only now you're stuck there forever and ever. Not my idea of heaven, folks. I know that you have to do the will of the Father, and I'm trying to move in with God, and I want you to move in with God. But God isn't letting just anybody move in with Him, and that's the first two verses we started out with. So Jesus said there are going to be few people who find it. Not everybody's going. Everybody thinks they're going. I get that. And how many times have you been to a funeral where they said, don't live like so-and-so here. He's probably in hell right now, and you don't want to imitate that life. Have you ever been to that funeral? Me neither. I've never preached that funeral. Now, if you would like me to say that at your funeral, go ahead and write it down ahead of time. We'll work it out with your family. Of course, I'm teasing. So why only are a few people going in? Why is it that the invitation has gone out, the gospel call, I should say, has gone out globally, and it is to every creature on the planet, but only a few get in? Well, that's because only a few actually want to meet up to the dress code. You only go in on God's terms. We don't get to make up our own terms. But that's what the broader religious community is taught. You get to make up your own rules. And it goes all over the whole spectrum, from the obvious, crazy, most bizarre stuff you can imagine to, just being lukewarm and I can still go in. No, you can't. Revelation 3:15-16 said, if you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out. Now, you can argue with me, you can argue with God, but He gets to make the rules. So I've got 4 challenges that we're going to look at. And first we have the challenge of Satan. He is a maniacal, twisted, crazy enemy. And the problem is he can't do anything directly at God. I mean, how do you do something directly at God? So since he can't do anything directly to God, he's like that wicked character that you would see in some Hollywood movies where there's this powerful person who did someone wrong and they want to get even, but there's no way they can touch him. And so they go after his children. And then the story, of course, they always kidnap the kid, and then there's all this, plot and twist and what have you. And we all are God's children. Now, I understand some people go, wait a minute, no, let me qualify. If I use the word offspring, I think that'll help a little bit. Acts 17:26-28, he says that he's talking to the pagans at Mars Hill, and he says we are the offspring of God. We are all God's offspring. Now, I understand we use the term children and Christians simultaneously quite a bit of the time, but go read it, Acts 17:26. You just got to go through verse 28. We're all His offspring. And Satan's out to get them. Because the only way he can get back at God is to do something to us, to drag us down into eternal ruin with him. That's what he's after. So he's attacking God's offspring. 1 Peter 5:8, you know it. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, roams about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. And he's out there, and he's doing everything he can, whether it's crazy overt and really bizarre, or it's just, go ahead and sleep in today. It's not going to hurt if you miss one service. It'll be all right. You can make it up next week. Of course, you know what he's saying next week, right? It's okay if you miss another week. They're still going to be there. Don't worry about it. You're too tired to do your Bible reading today. Now, the fact is, you ought to got it done earlier today before you got too tired, but nonetheless, that's the way he starts doing these things. So it can be something really kind of simple, or it can be crazy bizarre. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of thing. So that's one of the things. We're up against the challenge of Satan. Now, we're also up against the challenge of the flesh. So we'll use Galatians 5:17. For the flesh sets its desire against the spirit against the flesh, for these are in opposition to one another, so that you may not do the things that you please. Our flesh, we're wrestling with the desires of the flesh. Galatians 5:24 tells us where we're trying to get to. Same chapter, just a few verses later. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passion and desires. Now, the way I've said it recently, different metaphor, is God has given us a wild horse to tame. Our flesh is that wild horse. And what we're trying to do is we're trying, as Paul would say it, discipline our body and bring it into subjection. And so we have urges, we have desires. Our flesh, pulls this way and that. And again, maybe something that society would giggle at, not even think was a sin, or it may be really bizarre. But look back at the flesh. And we're trying to rein it in. We're trying to bring it under control. Now that's 1 Corinthians 9:27 where Paul said that. So that challenge of the flesh, it's there. And that's what our false teachers are going to appeal to. And they do a real good job of it. 2 Timothy 4, verse 3 and 4. The time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but wanting to have their ears tickled. Now we're back to the flesh. They'll accumulate for themselves teachers in accordance to their own desire and turn their ears away from the truth and will be turned aside to myth. We emphasize book, chapter, and verse. Psalms 119, 105. Thy words a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. We want that foundation. We want to be there. So you get back to the book, you look at the book, you read the book said it, that settles it. What is it, John 12, 42, 43, somewhere right in there, Christ said, the words that I spoke will judge you in the last day. End of story. Jesus said it, that settles it. We're done. Yeah, but there's no but. There's always a but, isn't there? There's always, but what? No. If the Word said it, that settles it. He's the one who's going to judge us in the last day, and we comply. But the flesh wants to argue that. The flesh wants to push back, and the flesh wants to find an excuse, a loophole, whatever to get around it and indulge the flesh. And Christ is trying to teach us how to crucify the flesh, how to tame it, how to bring it under control. So here's an illustration of how tough this is, because most of us have done this, right? And I'm going to use the most common. New Year's resolution. You're standing in front of the mirror. You're going, yeah, I probably ought to lose 5 pounds this year. Maybe with a 0 on the end. But anyway, I'm going to lose a little weight. You got this great attitude. You got a good idea. I'm going to do whatever. You pick your example. And then the flesh gets a hold of you. And for the diet illustration, what Mama's cooking in the kitchen? Man, that pizza smells good. Well, I like pizza. I'm going to start my diet in a couple of more days, right? And then there's a couple more, and then there's a couple of more. And the flesh, you see how hard it is to wrestle with that. And it's the same way with daily Bible reading. A lot of people, New Year's resolution, I'm going to read my Bible all the way through this year. I'm going to get on the reading app. We're going to follow it through. And I'm great. Make your New Year's resolution. Get down to about day 4 or 5, and it's like, I'm tired. Flesh. I don't get everything I'm reading. Look, if you can't get through Genesis without being messed up, you're in trouble. That's easy. All the way to Exodus 10 is easy. Now, after Exodus 10, and you start going, what is that about? Okay, I'm with you. That takes a little more study, but still you read it. You just go through it because that's what you said you were going to do. But the flesh says, I don't want to. That's the problem, is the flesh is fighting the spirit. And we have this tug of war going on all the time, and you just got to be like Paul in 1 Corinthians 9:27, where he said, I make my flesh my slave. I brought it under control. Now, it's pretty tough, but it's there. So now there are a lot of fleshly temptations. We're not going to go elaborate on all of these. My flesh is looking forward to lunch, so we ain't going to stay here for 4 hours and do this. So he says, I realize in the last day difficult times will come because men will be lovers of self. Okay, that's back to the flesh. Lovers of money. Why do we love money? Oh, indulge the flesh. Boastful, arrogant, revilers. Okay, we're still at, fleshly level. Disobedient to parents. That's pride. That's flesh. Ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable. And this is all flesh related. Malicious gossips, flesh related. Without self-control, definitely flesh related. Brutal, haters of good, no question, flesh related. Treacherous, reckless, conceited, flesh related. Lovers of pleasure, totally flesh related rather than lovers of God. Holding to a form of godliness. Now, after all of this garbage in their life, they're still going, yeah, but I'm a Christian. No, you're not. You have lied to yourself. Look, if you got some of this list up here before you get holding to a form of godliness, that's messed up. And Paul says it as much. He said, although they've denied its power, and then he says, avoid such men as these. Yeah. Be careful who you hang out with. It'll rub off on you. What did Mama used to say? I used to get this one all the time. Birds of a feather. How many of you heard that one? Yeah. But it was right, wasn't it? You hung out with the wrong people because you wanted to hang out with the wrong people. Now we have the challenge of distractions. And I'm going to go with I'm going to call it the more deceptive side. The seed which fell among the thorns, these are the ones that have heard, and as they go on their way, they're choked with the worries, riches, and pleasures of life, bring no fruit to maturity. So now, when I read worries, riches, and pleasures of life, I'm not really thinking the vilest, most depraved of sinners. I'm looking at people who are just too entangled in the concerns of this world. And that's where Satan loves to sneak in on us. And that is a challenge. It's difficult. You got a lot of stuff to manage. It's expensive to live in America, isn't it? And then you got to keep up a car or two. And that's not cheap, is it? Especially if you have to take it to the shop and pay $100 an hour of labor to get it fixed, right? Now, I don't have a problem with them charging because the workman is worthy his hire. And so he's got to make a living too. You know, what kind of living would they make if everybody, if they came in, they said, oh, we'll do it for free. You just pay for the part, we'll do it for free. You know, he's not going to be providing for his own at that level, right? So it costs a lot to live in America. Especially if you want to live at what the level we kind of think is cool. You know, I got my Wi-Fi, I got my TV, I got my AC, got my central heat, I got my 2-bath house, maybe 3-bath house, got 2 cars, got my 4-wheeler, my side-by-side, got my bass boat, you know, got my iPhone, got my iPad, got my Apple computer. You know, we like all of these things. And when you start stacking all that up, it's easy to get distracted. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I don't think it's wrong to have things. I think it's wrong for things to have you. And that can be a very subtle distinction, incidentally. But having things doesn't mean that, oh, you're bad. But having things does mean you got to be careful because there's going to be some worries. There's going to be some things happen. Everything that was man-made, how do you say it, Chris? Everything that's man-made is destined to fail? Pretty close, right? And it is. Your car's going to break down. Your phone's going to break down. Something's going to go wrong here and there. That's the way life works. And now you got to scramble and try to get it back together because you're wanting to maintain a certain lifestyle. I'm good with that. I like that lifestyle too. But if we're not careful, we'll get so busy chasing that lifestyle that we miss heaven. Now, most of the folks that fall into this category have good reputation. They're basically good people. They're great neighbors. They're good to work with. But that's not the point. You can be like Revelation 3:1, where they had a good reputation, church at Sardis, but they were dead. So basically what happens when we get distracted is we're failing to seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. That's Matthew 6:33. And we're also failing to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and all our mind. He gets the priority. That is the first and greatest command. And what Satan just wants to do, and he doesn't have to get you far off track. This is the kind of the scary thing. He's just got to get you a little bit off. So if I'm out deer hunting, and I've never got this one down right, and I've got to have my rifle right on the spot, and I'm 1 degree off, just one. And that deer's about 100 yards out there, which I don't think I ever hit one at 100 yards. I must have been 2 or 3 degrees off. I joke with my deer hunting as the deer pull up, walk up and go, right here, give it a shot. See, can you get it? And then they laugh at me and walk on. So obviously I'm a degree off somewhere, but it really looked like I was on, but I was off, and all of a sudden, nothing. That's all Satan's got to do to us. Just 1 little degree off. And before you know it, on down the road, we're a long ways off. That's kind of the scary part of this challenge. So we have this one. So you got to really look into the mirror And you got to go, am I really, really focused? Am I really, really trying to grow? Do I really want to engage? Am I like, let me in, coach? Put me into training. Take me into the weight room, so to speak. Or do I just really want to be coddled and assured while I wallow in my mediocrity? And let's be honest, there are a lot of people who just want to wallow in mediocrity, and they want the preacher to come up and go, you are one of our best members. Let me just give you a hug, pat you on the head, and give them assurance that they're right when they're not right. But you know how Satan has set up our political correct thing. If the preacher says anything too bold, too direct, especially one-on-one, now who's the bad guy? Oh, I thought you paid me to teach you how to walk the straight and narrow way and to learn how to purge out the old leaven. I thought that was what my job was to comfort the discomforted and discomfort the comforted. Is that my job? Everybody go, yes. And then go, except when it comes to me. Because that's the way most people do it. Yeah. Being a preacher, you walk a tightrope. You got to be careful. So a lot of folks just want to stay in mediocrity, and there are plenty of coddling preachers out there that will give you just exactly that. I do not recommend it, but it's there. Then we have number 4. This is our last one. This is the challenge of mastering your own heart, because out of the heart it's where our behavior comes to. Mark 7:21-23. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed the evil thoughts, fornications, theft, murders, adulteries, deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slandering, pride, and foolishness. All of these things proceed from within and defile a man. So we have to learn, how am I going to master what's on the inside? So he says in Matthew 12:36, one of the scariest verses in the Bible, I tell you that every careless word that people speak, they shall give an account for it in the day of judgment. By your words you will be justified. By your words you will be condemned. I got to get control here. And if Satan can get inside my head and say, that's not what that really means. You don't really have to control all of that. Who just won? Right? 2 Corinthians 5:10. We must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may be recompensed for his deeds in the body according to what he has done, whether good or bad. Our behavior, our practices count. Whether we're talking about our idle words, they count. They count. We're going to make or break ourselves. I think I have Philippians 2:12 up here, a reference to it. We're responsible to work out our own salvation. Philippians 2:12. He didn't say, I want you to be baptized and sit down on a pew and be like a knot on a log for the next 50 years. He said, you're going to work out your own salvation. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means a whole lot of stuff. And right now, we're looking at mastering our heart. I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to guard my heart with all diligence, for out of it proceeds the issues of life. And I want to be sure that I'm going the right way. So our opportunity is open to everybody. There's nothing on earth that's ever going to compare to this. Even if Bill Gates, Bezos, or Elon Musk said, I got an extra $1 billion here I'd like to put in your account. You can just spend what you want. It'd be cool. Okay, that would be cool. But what happens at the tombstone? It's all staying behind. There's no way to take it. There's no opportunity on earth that compares to moving in with God forever and living in His house and getting to be one of the children in His home. But there is a dress code. And I'm glad there's a dress code. As I illustrated earlier, I don't want every yahoo in Jefferson County just freely walking into heaven and having Pine Bluff 0.2 version when I get there, 2.0, excuse me. So the claim of unconditional entrance is not in the Bible. And Christ made that pretty clear in Matthew 7:22, where the people said, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, in your name perform many miracles, and then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. The invitation is out there to everybody. But entrance is contingent upon doing the will of the Father. So, are we complying with the dress code? Is the whole little point of the lesson. We have a crazy, wonderful opportunity in front of us. And if we comply, we're going in forever. Now the question is, are you? If you've not yet put Christ on in baptism, our baptistry is ready. If you wandered away in such a manner you feel you need to make public confession, we're not here to belittle or put you down. We're here to help get you back on the road so that together we can pursue righteousness and faith and truth and all those things. If you're subject to our public invitation, please come while we stand and sing.